This video is titled Comparative Mythology and the Dangers of Meme Scholarship. Now, the reason why I chose to title this video in such a manner is because I've seen copious amounts of meme and posts, especially during major holiday seasons, that are shared on social media that are historically inaccurate and just plain silly. Now, before you pick up your stones and throw them at me, I want to make things clear. This video is in no way advocating the legitimacy of Christian religion, whether it be Roman Catholic or Protestant. My argument is that the statements and ideas that many of these memes put forth stem primarily from a man named Alexander Hislop in his book The Two Babylons. In this series, I will also attempt to share accurate information on the gods, myths, and historical characters that are mentioned in Hislop's book. To begin, here's a brief history lesson on Alexander Hislop, who he was, his major work, and a little bit of his ideas. Hislop was born in 1807 in Dunsborough, which is located in Scotland. He was ordained in 1844 at the East Free Church, where he became a senior minister in 1864. He died of a paralytic stroke in 1865. His book, The Two Babylons, was first released as a pamphlet in 1853, and the expanded book was released in 1858. Now, his book was a critique of the Roman Catholic Church, its rituals and festivals. Although there is some truth in his claims, his biggest flop was that he fabricated a lot of his history, quote-unquote, which he combined with a mismatch of views and mythology. He argued that all of the beliefs and practices of the Roman Catholic Church originated in ancient Babylon, which was ruled by Nimrod and his wife Semiramis. He claimed that Nimrod was a big, ugly black man. His wife Semiramis was a most beautiful white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, a backslider known for her immoral lifestyle, the inventor of soprano singing, the originator of priestly celibacy, etc. He said that the Babylonians baptized in water, believed it had the virtue because Nimrod and Semiramis suffered for them in water, that Noah's son Shem killed Nimrod, that Semiramis was killed when one of her sons cut off her head, etc. Now, there is absolutely no evidence of any of this being true. No historical, archaeological evidence, no manuscripts, no inscriptions, nothing. No tablets have been found to corroborate his claims. He also claims that Semiramis had a posthumous son, meaning that she conceived a baby after Nimrod was killed, named Tammuz, and that he was killed by a wild boar. That's where we get the Easter ham from, supposedly. And that his death was the origin of Lent. Hislop's methods that he used, and many other people use these methods as well, it's a bad example of comparative mythology and misuse of etymology, morphology, and semantics, and I'll explain what those are later on. But Hislop builds his thesis on Pan-Babylonian school of hyper-diffusionism. And I know that's a mouthful, but what it means is that many, if not all the cultures and religions, customs, rituals, and beliefs originated in Babylon and were spread from there. And that's simply not true. Comparative mythology is a field of study that is best defined as the comparison of myths from different cultures in an attempt to identify shared themes and characteristics. For example, scholars have used the relationships between different myths to trace the development of religions and cultures, to propose common origins for myths from different cultures, and to support various psychological theories. Now, in my opinion, comparative mythology is a great tool to use that illustrates the fact that, yes, indeed, all cultures have a common origin. We all come from Adam, and we all descended from Noah and his 3 sons. A lot of these myths are universal in many cultures. For example, a lot of the cultures have creation stories, God creating the world. A German term called Chaoskampf. Chaoskampf myths are myths dealing with a god fighting a chaotic sea monster. And yes, that's even in the Bible, Genesis 1:1. And the prophets in Job, it talks about Leviathan being a sea creature, and Rahab, Most High getting ready for battle against Rahab. Look it up. Don't believe what I say, look it up. There's myths on Deus Autisus myths, meaning myths of God or gods cutting off contact with humanity. We see that in Eden account, where after the fall of man, that there's a cut and a split between the relationship between man and God. Many cultures have a sacred tree Many cultures have a beguiling serpent or reptilian of some sort. A lot of cultures around the world have flood myths. They have hero stories and so on. If you read Hislop's book, it seems as if every pagan god known to man are actually different names for Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. That was his problem. He wanted to connect everything and everyone with these characters. The same is done today by many pseudo-scholars such as Acharya S., the Zeitgeist movies produced by Peter Joseph, and others, which these characters in particular, they are pushing the agenda and saying that Jesus was a fictional character and a copy of many pagan gods like Mithras, Zoroaster, Adonis, Dionysus, which is simply not true. And that's just ridiculous in my opinion. There are no credible academic scholars known, whether it be Jewish, Christian, atheists, that deny the existence of a historical Jesus. If you find one, please let me know. To continue, just because different gods and or historical characters have similar qualities or attributes doesn't make them the same. If that's the case, then we can make the claim that Yahweh or Yahweh and Baal are the same, since they're both called the one who rides on the clouds. And you can find that term in the Ugaritic text, which is the language of northern Canaan, which a lot of the myths about Baal and all these gods originate from. And here's a quote from Dr. Michael Heiser, who is the academic editor of Logos Bible Software. And he wrote, "Throughout the Ugaritic text, Baal is representatively called the one who rides the clouds, or the one who mounts the clouds. The description is recognized as the official title of Baal. No angel or lesser being bore the title. As such, everyone in Israel who heard this title associated it with a deity and not a man or angel. The biblical writers used the same title and attributed it to Yahweh to make a theological point." He further says, part of the literary strategy of the Israelite prophets was to take this well-known title and attribute it to Yahweh in some way. Consequently, Yahweh, the God of Israel, bears this descriptive title in several places of the Old Testament, such as Isaiah 19:1, Deuteronomy 33:26, Psalm 68:33, Psalm 104 verse 3. For a faithful Israelite, then, there was only one God who rode on the clouds, Yahweh. Now, if we use the same reasoning that these people use and Hislop used, we can say that Hercules and Samson are pretty much the same because they're both strong men. We can say that King David is the same as Orpheus because they're both musicians, or that Moses is the same as the Greek god of medicine Asclepius because they're both connected with a snake wrapped around the pole. We can also say that Jesus is the same as Tammuz because Jesus is known as the Good Shepherd and Tammuz was a shepherd god. I can go on, but you get the idea. The Greek and the Romans were notorious for doing such comparisons. When they invaded a country, they adopted the native gods and many times either changed the names or attributed them to their own gods back home in Greece or Rome. For example, the god Mithras was originally a god from Persia, but he was adopted in Roman culture. We can see this also in the book of 2 Maccabees, where the temple at Jerusalem was renamed the Temple of Jupiter Olympus. Jupiter is the same as Zeus in the Greek culture. In the Greeks' minds, Yahweh is equivalent with Zeus. Both Zeus and Yahweh are known as Father. Both are associated with the heavens. Both rule over other gods or divine council, etc. Now let me demonstrate exactly what Hislop did and what others do till this day. Let's start with Yam, the Canaanite god of the sea. Let's just say hypothetically that he was the inspiration for the Greek god Poseidon. Well, we know that Poseidon was also known as Neptune by the Romans. Why stop there? Aquaman also can be the next in line in this theo-evolution. Finally, if we consider all of these attributes associated with these gods, all are associated with the sea or oceans, we can assume, yes, we can only assume, without any evidence, that they all talked with marine life, and all except for Yam had a metallic tool as a weapon. We can safely conclude that SpongeBob is also a part of this long line of gods. See how ridiculous that sounds? That's exactly what Hislop and a lot of people are doing even to this day. Next topic, we're going to talk about etymology, morphology, and semantics. First off, some definitions. Etymology. Etymology is the study of origins of words and the way in which their meanings have changed throughout history. Morphology. In linguistics, morphology is the study of words, how they are formed, and their relationship to other words in the same language. It analyzes the structures of words and parts of words, such as stem, root words, prefixes, suffixes, etc. Semantics is the branch of linguistics and logic concerned with meaning, or what a word means. Hislop, as well as others, use and misuse these tools quite often in order to spread their agenda. For example, he connects the name Easter with Asheroth and Ishtar. Easter, actually, comes from a Proto-Germanic word meaning dawn. That's also where we get the word east from. The dawn appears in the east. Most scholars believe that Easter gets its name from Oestra or Ostara. Yes, she was a female pagan goddess. But however, this pagan goddess is only attested by one person, who was an English monk named Bede, who lived 600s to 700s AD. Now, English and German are the only two languages that use this variation for the word Easter, or German Ostern, as a name for the holiday. Most other European languages use one form or another of the word for Passover, Hebrew Passover. In Greek is Peshka, Hebrew Pesach. In French is Pasques, or Pasque. In Italian is Pasqua. Dutch is Pasen. Danish Paske, in Bulgarian is Pashka, and so on and so forth. Now, as with characteristics between gods, just because two words sound alike doesn't mean that they're the same or have the same origin. If that's the case, we can say what a lot of people argue over the internet, that Jesus Christ comes from Jesus Krishna, or that the name Moses comes from the word muses, which were the daughters of Zeus. The reason why we have Easter in our English and German Bibles was because that's how it was translated in the German, Ostara, not because it was related to Ishtar or Asheroth. To be honest, even though Easter and Ishtar are not linguistically related, I do find it interesting that Easter comes from the root word for dawn or sunrise. And the fact that most churches do a sunrise service is reminiscent of the account we find in Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 16. This is it for this section of the series. I'll come up with more in the near future, but I hope you liked it. Please give me feedback, share, subscribe, and you have a good day. Shalom.